Dear Susie, here's my plan.
Dear Sam, my answer is yes.
Dear Susie, 1.
Dear Sam, where?
Dear Susie, walk 400 yards due north from your house to the dirt path which has not got any name on it. Turn right and follow to the end. I will meet you in the meadow.
Who's missing? Shukusky, you in there? Jiminy Cricket, he flew the coop.
All right, Moon Pie Kingdom.
Moon pie.
There's a fantasy in my head.
Just chocolate-covered marshmallow everywhere you look.
Everywhere, a land of cookie and chocolate, and I would be the king.
You'd be King Diabetes.
Man, you
I
know
want to
what?
live in the land with all the Reese's monkeys going around.
Reese's peanut butter monkeys.
And AIDS.
Come on now. Why you gotta
You gotta
ruin
be like that.
Get all
man,
dark and shit.
Y'all can mention Reese's monkeys and not think of AIDS.
No, Reese's.
No, Reese's peanut butter monkeys.
No,
You know,
come on,
we were the land of sugar and candy. You just had to bring it out to disease and famine and no, that was you, Coles.
Oh, sorry.
King Diabetes. No, you know what? Listen.
Let's just accept they're both bad people and move on.
Okay. Yes, sir. You know who else is a bad person? Wes Anderson. I don't like that guy.
What?
No, you know what? That's what people are going to say.
Oh, it's on now.
See, like you. See, you ready to start shit with me. But
How it all begins.
I have no problem with Wes Anderson. I want to let all you hipsters out there know before you gang up on me. Love the fantastic Mr. Fox. Love Rushmore. Love Bottle Rocket. I like the movie that no one liked that much. Darjeeling Limited.
That's the only one I haven't seen. So
Really? I know plenty of people who like that.
Yeah,
Really? Well, I am one of those people. But everybody's talking about
You just said you did like it.
Royal Tenenbaums.
Not a big fan.
Okay.
Thought it was cool. Thought it was all right. I've grown to like The Life Aquatic a little bit more. Don't love it, but I've grown to like it.
We'll go to like this.
Like what? Like these right here? These nuts? No. But man, I know everybody's loving this movie, Moonrise Kingdom. I'm not one of them.
Look, Wes Anderson has a very distinctive style. I mean, probably like maybe the most distinctive style of any currently working director. There's no missing a Wes Anderson film from the opening credits. And this is like concentrated Wes Anderson style, so much so that before the movie even starts, you're just sitting in darkness. You're like, oh yeah, it's the Wes Anderson film.
You're right.
You can smell the auditorium and go, yep, Wes Anderson.
You're right. But because the thing is, it's so concentrated that I kind of wish they would have added some water to it, because I was like, it's a little so concentrated that it's like it's almost like he's moving backwards to what he did before with his earlier movies, where I appreciate and I like, but now after those earlier movies came out, there's been imitators, obviously, and watching this, it felt like I was watching somebody really trying hard to do a Wes Anderson film, except I just didn't get the character development that I wanted to, because I think the story was so simplistic. Not that that's a bad thing sometimes, but the thing is, it was so goddamn quirky that it was wearing it on its sleeves, and I just was like, I wish I can get a little bit of...
the fans would kill you.
But hey, you know,
they said...
Because I hated that goddamn Fox movie. I hated that movie.
Really?
I hated it.
Did you really?
Yeah, I hated it.
See, the fans, it's like they said, man, we do not want to ever hear that word quirky describing a Wes Anderson movie.
I'm sorry.
Ever.
Well,
I'm sorry.
How could you not?
They're all
Yeah.
quirky. That's
Yeah.
that's Wes Anderson.
Well, that's
And
what
if
I
you
guess
don't-
that's what they say. That
and if-
everybody uses that word for every one of his movies.
And if you don't like Wes Anderson, you are not going to like this movie, period. There's no way you're going to see his other movies and go, and then see this and go, this is the one. No, this is his most precious, probably, film yet. And if you love Wes Anderson, you're going to probably really love this too, because I know I totally did. I bought into every second of this. I can't argue with what co-host is saying. I mean, your points are accurate, generally speaking, but it's a matter of what you actually prefer, what you like. And for me, there's a shot early in this film where it's showing the whole house, and it's so clearly supposed to make you think of a dollhouse. Like, he's got all these characters as the little toys he's playing with, and every little room and all the weird stuff in there he's putting in. And that's what you're supposed to get from it. And that's Wes Anderson's little weird mind world that he lives in, I think, with his stories.
Leon, I want you to pick up here, but I just want to set this up a little bit. I think my biggest problem with this movie is that Wes Anderson is working with kids here. This movie deals with a troop of scouts, one scout in particular who's just kind of a troublemaker, and he falls in love with this girl and leaves the troop to be with this girl on this excursion that they take. And I admire the movie for being taking kids in what feels like a kid's movie until they have to deal with issues of sex, which I thought were handled realistically, even though this is a fantasy world that they've kind of created because it's Wes Anderson's world. It's his vision. But they've handled the kids and how they approach sex somewhat realistically and in a way that's just not condescending at all. But I'll get into the reasons why I have a problem with him working with kids after I give you a chance to say something. Yeah.
Well, the thing
Say
is,
something.
I
Too late. I'm sorry. Let's go on to our next contestant.
Isn't that what happens anyway? I sit here quiet, and when I start talking, Corey's like, "Hey, man, why don't you let me finish?" I'm like, "Wait, what?" But I passed it on to you. Really? Did you? Because the minute I said something, everybody jumps in.
Can I finish? All right, I'm finished.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Everybody, let Leon have his turn.
No. The thing is, I always think of myself as a Wes Anderson fan. I mean, yeah, I didn't like Life Aquatic so much. And Coach, I'm surprised that you said about Fantastic Mr. Fox, because I remember when I didn't love it, everybody jumped all over me, and I had nobody taking my back.
I'm standing on top of you right now, jumping on you because I don't get it.
But the thing is, with this, I found this movie to be very, very irritating. I was annoyed out of my mind in this fucking movie, because it was like odd. I was like, yeah, okay, it's an oddball family. Jesus, Wes Anderson, something else for a change. And the thing is, most of his being quirky, this was quirky to the point where it collapsed on itself because it didn't give me a story that I could still get into. The characters, except for the two main kids, I just really didn't. They were just cartoons that kind of float around, and there was no sense of tension, no sense of consequence to anything.
Or urgency.
I mean, or urgency. Like there's things would happen and it almost felt random. And I know it's not random because the way things work in his mind. You look at his other films, but I was like, this is the most Wes Anderson-y film of all. And like Coco said, I don't want it uncut. It needs to be diluted. It's almost like he said, like, all right, I worked to a point where I don't have a studio on my back making me tell a story, having a plot. Fuck that. I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's like, man, you need somebody else to come in and say, like, hey, make some of this shit make sense. There's a point when a character gets struck by lightning and just wipes his eyes and keeps going. And I was like, wow, everything I was feeling up to that point right there, it is completely broke for me now. Because it doesn't matter what happens to anybody. And those two kids I liked, but the adults, most of them, with the exception of two, I just thought were written in a way like, wow, just don't like these people at all. And I can't understand how this world works.
It was the first, because Bill Murray's in this, which that was a big deal for me. And I always hate it when a movie uses Bill Murray and they really don't use the great qualities, the great things about him that he can really bring out, even in characters that aren't even written all that well. You know, he brings himself to the forefront to, you know, make the character interesting. And with this, I just felt like he was going through the motions. Him and
Francis McDormand.
Him too. But also, what's his name? Edward Norton, the Hulk. Ex-Hulk.
Excuse me, Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner. I'm sorry. When they introduced his character, it was another character where it's like, okay, he is the awkward child man, I guess, in this movie, but I didn't see where he really fit in the story besides what they did with him at the end.
You saw Ed Norton as a child man?
He was, you know what, he's a scoutmaster, but he was kind of childish the way he was with those. See, that was one of the things that kind of irritated me in the movie as well, is that the way his character was. He was part of that quirky world, like none of it really makes sense in ours, but I suppose it does in theirs. But then his character has a shift where he stops being a two-dimensional cartoon and becomes a real character, like a real person. And I was interested, and then they just kind of drop him. I was like, damn it.
Well, I didn't feel that way at all about him. I thought, like, he's the only really developed supporting character, because ultimately it's really about the two kids who are falling in love and that no one else wants them to really be together. Both Francis McDormand and Bill Murray, they're really minor characters in this. And you say you're mad they didn't develop Bill Murray more. Sure, we all love to see Bill Murray, but that's just not the point of his character in this thing. This movie's not about him. But Ed Norton here, I mean, I love the fact they really do define him as this guy whose life has ended up revolving around this very little ultra specific thing, the Scouts. It means a lot to him. He's not childlike. He's one of those guys who like does nothing with his spare time but have a stamp collection or something, you know? He's just found his joy in something odd and he revolves around it.
That's so
But
childish.
then when the time comes to break out of that and like, wow, I've got to expand beyond these borders, think outside the box, he totally does. And they, if anything, I'd say they wrap up his storyline a little earlier in the film.
That was my
you
point. Like
expect,
at that point,
but they still wrapped it up.
but it wasn't so much wrapped up as it was cut off.
But I think I really identified with the two lead kids here because there are aspects of both of them I found in myself when I was growing up. I mean, I actually ran away from home when I was like 8, which means like a block away with a
I did the same
suitcase
thing.
filled with nothing but books. You know?
See, that's where you went wrong because you couldn't eat the books.
Yeah, you couldn't eat the books.
Go back home and eat.
Too bad you couldn't have run away with a girl like this kid did.
Well, that's the thing. Like, even as a little kid, I was like one of the guys. Like, I'd fake run away from the girls when they were chasing us to kiss us in like recess and kindergarten. Oh, I tripped.
Wow,
So what the hell's wrong with these
usually
other boys?
girls were running from me, and I was like,
You know, speaking of girls, because this, I mean, we're kind of like skirting around what the main kind of the main plot is basically the meat of it is these two kids, and I have to admit, at first I was a little charmed. I was like, all right, this is kind of charming. These kids obviously have some bit of chemistry, but at the same time, this movie made me feel kind of creeped out in a way because even though, you know, they do introduce aspects of these kids with this relationship where it seems like, you know, this seems a little too adult for kids of this
Well,
age.
you know what?
I was a little taken back by how many shots there were of this little girl's in her underwear where I'm just like,
I didn't feel like it was trying to titillate. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was to give the movie credit for something, it would be that, like you know, the real Moonrise Kingdom when they do run away and nobody knows where they are and they have their moments together. I mean, that stuff actually worked for me. And I thought, you know what? If there was a short film about this, I'd be like, wow. I'd be telling everybody, man, you gotta watch this. This is pretty cool. But as it's drawn out into something longer and bigger, it was all the other stuff that didn't work. I mean, you're right. It has that weird kind of creepiness to it, but it didn't feel unrealistic.
Only in an American context that we're also scared of dealing with the fact that children do indeed have
Sure.
sexual thoughts, especially when they're like 13. I wanted to fuck everything that moved when I was 13.
But I don't want to see a
we're,
movie about that.
terrified, Like we can't even discuss it or acknowledge it. And this is a film that like any number of French coming of age films actually isn't afraid to go, look, kids do actually think about this stuff. And the point of this movie is for these kids stopping being kids. They're no longer little kids. They don't want to be little kids. They want to grow out of that. They want this thing that this love they found with each other. Is it realistic? No adult around them seems to think so, but they do. And the film is sort of like almost a Russian nesting doll of like impressions of childhood and what people think you're supposed to do. I don't know. I really loved it. And you're right. It's a fantasy universe completely. It's Wes Anderson's little imaginary world, and all these characters may not behave just like people would in the real world, but they behave exactly like characters do in Wes Anderson films.
Well, and to that point, not that you're wrong about that, but you know what? It's almost, man, I was starting to get that Tim Burton feeling where I was just like, yeah, man, I know you're quirky, you got your thing, but I got to see you do something else. I can't keep coming back to the same place. It's just not fun anymore.
I'll tell you what. Let me. I'm going to warn you right now. This is going to be a little lengthy. And first of all, to address what you're saying, co-host, I know exactly what you mean by being creeped out. The reason why you felt that way is because that's the point in real life where if you saw two kids doing it, you're like, get your ass off each other. You know, that's where you get the hoes. You're like, hey.
I'm the fucking asshole at the prom going, hey, start at 5 feet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get your hands off our tennis.
Yeah, come on now.
Yeah, you can't do that because you're a person who's just a viewer. You're not there you can't interact with these characters, but you're an observer. But let me go into, please. This is Korey's class
You want your soapbox?
Oh, Wes Anderson, right? Please.
Let's make sure the mic's on.
Here's a class on Wes Anderson by the guy who admits he doesn't really like Wes Anderson.
I said I like Wes Anderson. See, Cyrus, you're the one that could really learn something. Sit down there and have a seat. You know that.
I've been sitting. I'm not going to stand for this.
I'm gonna teach you, put you in the corner. You know, be quiet.
Listen to great things.
Yeah.
There better be a slideshow. Is all I'm saying.
Come on, preacher.
I'm going to address while I talk. Is that okay? I'm going to strip. But now listen. Here. First, this is Wes Anderson. Asshole. No, this is, I do like Wes Anderson. this is my problem with not Wes Anderson in general, but with the idea of the auteur, the theory of the auteur. Everybody seems to think that someone who carries a certain fan base or a certain following, when they repeat the same thing that they do in movies, whether it's visually or story-wise or whatever, or the writing, they say, well, that's just the mark of an auteur. You can recognize his film right when you see it. And for someone like Wes Anderson, I don't see that him taking those elements and really growing with them at all. I think maybe he thought he was because he's working with kids here. But I tell you what annoyed me about him having kids in this movie. Wes Anderson has a very deadpan sense of humor. And for his adults, I think that works. I think it works well. When you have somebody like Ed Norton, who's the head of the scout troop here, or you have Bruce Willis, who is cast very much against type, who I think Bruce Willis is a very versatile actor, but a lot of people tend to forget. And if somebody like Wes Anderson that takes Bruce Willis, who plays, what is he playing this?
He's the local police officer.
Yeah. It takes a director like Wes Anderson to see Bruce Willis for his talent and cast him against type. He's not an action hero. He's sort of a washed up, middle-aged, I would say even old guy now.
He's old.
You said
he's old.
Bruce Willis being cast as a washed-up middle-aged cop is against type.
I see Wes Anderson can take that and not make an action movie out of it.
That would be funny if he was still John McClane. This is where he ended up. After that last stunt you pulled,
I have to give Wes Anderson a lot of credit for finally casting Bruce Willis as he really is in life. Old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, he's like John McClane. They're like, John McClane, you know what? We're going to send you to Moonrise Kingdom. He fucked up so much.
Is this the first time that he didn't shave his head? He's just balding?
Yeah. And he got that silly string hair going on. Yeah. But, he's talented in that way where he can take these actors and play with them and put them against type. My problem with the kids is that these kids are so deadpan that they act like they're on Prozac. They are boring. To me, I'm not going to say these kids can't act, but to try to apply that Wes Anderson that deadpan style, it just makes them seem like they cannot act. They barely get above that with the kids. Jared Gilman and Kara Hayward, who are your two leads, who I thought were great. That kid, the bad kid, Jared Gilman plays Sam Shalusky, whatever. That kid is probably given the most to do because he's the most mischievous. But there's some other things that I see Wes Anderson repeating now, and just repeating, not doing anything with them, not playing with them, just repeating. Every movie, we get the composition, the wide shot, almost symmetrical, your central figure in the center of the screen, bottom. He never managed to do a movie without that. His fondness for mid to late 60s pop music, especially British pop, which I love, and his penchant for like French pop music from that period. Repeats that in every movie. Don't really see it growing in anywhere. And even to the extent where, while I think he plays with these actors well, I'm starting to see the same kind of characters repeat themselves too. Just strange characters. This is the movie where I think you had Bill Murray so deadpan that you're right, co-host, that they underutilized the guy. I myself, since I don't see him doing anything, I just see it very boring. At first I thought it was inspired. Now I'm wishing for that Wes Anderson that we had back when he did Bottle Rocket. I wish that guy would experiment a little bit more, because he did none of that stuff too much in Bottle Rocket, maybe because he didn't have the budget. But it feels like now that it's almost like he woke up one day and said, man, I found a visual style. Oh, this is me. And all the hipsters love it. I'm just going to keep giving them what they like. Although, I will say there are some great scenes in the movie. I told you it was long. So now you're going to learn something before it's done. No, I agree. Cyrus, I agree with you.
I've learned something.
No, Cyrus, I do agree with you. Like that shot, and that's another repeated shot. That whole shot where it looks like a dollhouse, I thought that, now that's the Wes Anderson I wish we could see him doing more of something like this, but we don't see it. He did that in The Life Aquatic too, where they went through the submarine and you saw all the different things. I kind of like that. But, so I still think he's an inspired director. I still think he's got a very original voice out there, one of the most original directors we have. I think he just needs to kind of stop repeating himself and do a little bit more.
You say you don't like it almost sounds like you don't believe or approve of the auteur theory. And I don't feel that way. I think that just very few people pull it off successfully. And I put Wes Anderson at this point in his career in the same camp as I do Woody Allen, really. Not at this point in Woody Allen's career, mind you, but that they both do that. They both have that thing where they're like, look, this is me. This is who I am. This is the type of stories I like to tell. These are the trimmings I like to put in here. And yeah, I am going to keep reusing them until I get them to the point where I feel I've done them as good as I'm going to do them. maybe this is that movie for him. Who knows? I mean, I think by The Life Aquatic, I was starting to go, this is a good movie, but you could probably inject something new into this. I felt like the script maybe suffered a little, like it just wasn't as interesting as his previous films. But see, for me, this one, it was that intensity of everything, the way that he throws all that stuff into it that made it so much fun for me, that it was just, it was pure fantasy, and it was a nostalgic adolescent fantasy. It was definitely not for kids by any stretch of the imagination. And these are all characters living in, in Wes's weird little mind. This is like what people see if they were doing the Being John Malkovich into his head, but I don't mind that. We all know that. In a weird sort of way, I thought it was very gratifying being such a huge Wes Anderson fan and then seeing this film, because it is like that sort of like payoff for the serious fans. Like, fuck it, we're just going to go all out with this one.
What would you give it then?
I give this a full price. I think this is his best movie since The Royal Tenenbaums. Right. I thoroughly enjoyed the shit out of this thing, and I can't argue with anybody who thinks it's too precious, because it is. It's incredibly precious, and it is incredibly as wildly Anderson-y as you can get. And as you said, Leon, it's like, look, I'm just want to see the guy do something new. Fair enough if you feel that way. I don't. I'd be happy seeing the next 5 movies be this kind of Wes Anderson.
See, you were crippling his development when you encouraged him. That's why you can't do it. You know what? Let me just say this. I thought I was a Wes Anderson fan because I love so much of his movies. Obviously, I take his films on a film by film basis. I'm not a fan as much as his true fan base is, but I will, in good faith, end this on a good note. I will say this much: the end of the movie, and this is the end after I've been bored, came to life for me when Harvey Keitel and especially Jason Schwartzman came in. Jason Schwartzman, I think, is
funny as hell.
Is hilarious in this movie. He's one of the he's a scout leader in another troop who takes these kids in as refugees.
I can't offer you a legally binding union. It won't hold up in the state, the county, or frankly any courtroom in the world due to your age, lack of a license, and failure to get parental consent. But the ritual does carry a very important moral weight within yourselves. You can't enter into this lightly. Look into my eyes. Do you love each other?
Yes, we do.
But think about what I'm saying. Are you sure you're ready for this?
Yes, we are.
They're not listening to me. Let me rephrase it.
Oh, we're in a hurry.
Are you chewing? Spit out the gum, sister. In fact, everybody. I don't like the snappy attitude. This is the most important decision you've made in your lives. Now go over by that trampoline and talk it through before you give me another quick answer.
I wish the whole movie was like him. I want that movie to be about him, actually, because I loved his character so much. But yeah, like I said, it was a very dull experience for me until the last 15 minutes. So nothing against those fans that like his movie. Y'all can have this shit. No, I'm just kidding. No, this movie's actually for you. It's not that much for me. I'll wait for the next Wes Anderson movie and see what he can do. I would almost like to see him do something animated, just to see him do something different. Because maybe that's why I love the Fantastic Mr. Fox. Because see, that's what I'm talking about. I don't have a problem with the theory of the auteur. I think you can repeat the same thing you do as long as you continue to experiment with it. Fantastic Mr. Fox, I thought he took all the familiarities of his movies and put it in something different, such as an animated film. But I'm going to go ahead and give this a rental. Obviously.
Oh, that's it.
I know. Oh, here you go. Come on in. Come on. I'm just going to move out the way and let you fall. What are you going to do? You going to beat me to death with popcorn? That sounds like you're popping popcorn right now.
Holy goddammit.
Okay.
Oh, boy. How's he going to react when I give it some old bullshit? Wow.
Yeah, but I don't care what you think.
Okay, good. Yeah, bubbles. Yeah, the thing is with this movie, once again, I'm that kind of thing where somebody had asked me before seeing this, "Are you a Wes Anderson fan?" I said, "Yeah, you goddamn right I am." I'm like, perhaps I need to rethink this. This movie made me think of all the things. It was like somebody watched. Like, for the most part, I like Fantastic Mr. Fox, except for some places where it was just too deadpan and quirky and random.
Use that word quirky one more time.
Hey, man, I'm sorry. And with this movie, you get to say it as many times as possible.
Once you get a goddamn thesaurus already.
But also with, it's like they took those moments, but they took every part of The Life Aquatic that I didn't like and just said, all right, I'm going to make a movie with nothing but that. And I was like, damn it. I so wanted to love this movie, but almost from the beginning with the opening scene of the oddball family in the quote unquote dollhouse, I was like, well, all right. I hate to go to this place again because I just don't have a frame of reference for it. I didn't grow up like this, and I don't know anybody who did. But hey, if that's Wes Anderson, good for him. But like I said, the longer it went on, just could not connect with any of the characters. The two kids, I liked them, and that's probably the one thing that saved me from giving some old bullshit, because there was moments with them that I liked, and some stuff with Ed Norton and Bruce Willis toward the end. The thing with Jason Schwartzman, yeah, but it was too little, too late. And even with that, I'm like, man, I guess he just can't make a movie with Jason Schwartzman. That's just part of the contract with the devil. You know what? I regret every time I've said a movie is for hipsters, because I would have saved it for this one. And this was like a hipster chick movie. Nothing against you, Cyrus. It's just as I came out. That's okay.
You a hipster.
It's just like, as I stood outside the theater and all the people who came out nodding their head and loving it, they were either girls or they had the most ironic facial hair and skinny jeans I've ever seen. But yeah, it to me it was a low rental. I would never want to watch it.
Cyrus, put that gun there. That's Foley.
Getting that sound off your computer is not.
I know. Hey, I'm doing the best I can. I ain't got Wes Anderson money to make productions with.
It's foolish is what it is.
It's more like Axel Foley.
You guys are pretty much.
Shut up.
You guys, with the exception of Cyrus, has pretty much said everything I thought this movie was. Where you do kind of walking out of this screening, you do feel like, man, this is one of those movies where I feel like I have to like it, or all my credentials are going to get thrown out the window if I had any to begin with. But I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like, as much as I wanted to, especially with the kids, I thought the angle with the kids, just them, just kind of doing their own thing, being rebellious in their Wes Anderson way, in their kooky kind of way.
Okay, thank you.
Good
Make
one.
an attempt. There you go.
Their kookiness about it was going to win me over, but they just kind of brought in all these other elements that I just felt were kind of unnecessary. The biggest unnecessary thing about it is, like, there's an old guy with glasses who narrates the story to you out of nowhere. You see these kids like on a boat, and there's a guy who just kind of giving you like his commentary.
Are you talking about Bob Balaban?
Yeah.
Bob
Where
Balaban.
he's just there out of nowhere, like waiting for these kids to arrive on their boat like a goddamn serial killer who's going, and then they arrived here at the bay, and I'm like, what? Who the fuck are you?
It gives the whole thing a storybook feeling.
Why?
Yeah, but
I understand.
They don't really go anywhere with it.
Yeah, but they don't go anywhere with it. And the thing is, the movie already had
Because
a
it's not
storybook feel to it. It didn't need him.
It's not a plot element. It's a
I thought it was
stylistic device.
And I thought it was ridiculous.
You don't even believe that.
I totally believe that.
Did you write him that part? Is that what happened? But
I would have.
but I mean, it's moments like that where I'm like, okay, you know what? You're trying too goddamn hard to outdo who you are. All right? So stop it. I mean, you're a competent filmmaker. Yes, I get it. But write some interesting characters. I think that's the biggest problem with this movie is, besides the kids, there was nothing else really interesting going on in the story. There was nothing there to make it memorable. And it wasn't. I mean, an hour after I left the movie, I just didn't think about it anymore.
Can I say something, man? I just, because you mentioned something interesting. You really did feel like this is a movie I should like, because when you came out, I don't know if you thought I liked the movie, because I was looking to you to tell me what you liked about it. I said, Cole, did you like this movie? You're like, I like the children. Yeah, I like the children were crazy. I like that. Yeah, you were trying to do everything to say that you did not like it because you thought I was part of that hipster zombie crowd in there.
Really?
I was like, I better not say nothing. Or he's gonna he's gonna be eating my face in front of the Alamo Draft House. It's gonna be on the news. but no, I mean, I kind of felt bad because I know the guy. He had some talent at life. Honestly, The Life Aquatic was the movie where I kind of checked out as far as being like a big fan. And I actually liked that movie. I didn't love it. I liked it. But when I saw the Fox movie, I was like, this is kind of his same old shit, except he needed to get some fucking shitty looking puppets and animate. Like, what are you going to do next? Finger puppets? With the same story? It's like, how many different styles are you going to get telling the same fucking story?
It's not the same story. It's got the same style.
It's the same. It's the same.
Style, not the same
It's not the same story at all.
I'm sorry. The same Wes Anderson storybook style that what he does. I get it. But hey,
I was just totally wrong. But I'm going to make it sound like you're the one who's wrong.
I fucked up. I'll admit, I fucked up. But yeah, it's just a rental. I mean, like I said, the thing. I think he's just moving backwards, and he needs to be moving forwards.
All right.
Like any director.
make you move forward.
Hopefully with this one he got out of his system, and now it's like, all right, now make some movies for the
Next
rest
one,
of
he's
us.
going to direct Prometheus 2.
Throw some of that shit in space. Maybe I'll like it then. I don't know.
Maybe we need a Wes Anderson science fiction movie or something.
Hey, you better shut your mouth.
Oh, that's a great idea, Corey. I'm going to send that. I have his email. I'm going to send that to him. Say you gave it to me.
Well, you should, since you all buddy with him. Because you fucking him right now.
Where's the boy? I'm told that he's just been struck by lightning.
It's true.
I'll be out back. I'm going to find a tree to chop down.